How's it going, guys? My name is Inflameboy and welcome to the next episode of Blast from the Past. Today we are going to be covering a game which I just spent hours and hours when I was younger as a kid, just grinding and grinding. The game is called Lineage 2. Some people pronounce it Lineage 2, but I don't. I call it Lineage 2. If you don't agree, each to their own. The game itself was developed by an American-based company, I think, called NC Soft. It was released in October 2003, and if you know your games, that was 1 year before World of Warcraft. People say that World of Warcraft changed the whole course of MMOs in general. It might have had definitely some influence, but what you have to remember is World of Warcraft was influenced by the many games that was before it. And in terms of Lineage 2, it had groundbreaking graphics, especially for 2003. I didn't necessarily have a decent computer back then, and whenever I went into town and it was just full of people, you just couldn't move. It was just so laggy, so you had to turn down the graphic details just to really low, just to even cope. The graphics were amazing for considering how old this game was. Not so great anymore, obviously, with new releases, but so yeah, it was a subscription-based game until about 2011, where it was changed to a free-to-play model with your typical in-game store. I believe NC Soft did that because obviously revenues were coming down, and all games nowadays are looking for other ways of making money, so that's probably the best decision, really, and more players are able to go back to it. Over time it's had many expansions like you generally do with your MMOs. It's had new classes released, new races released. I believe you can expand into different classes as you get to certain levels, and that's been increased. It's also had like complete refurbishments of lower level areas. So all the areas that I remember, for example, there was the human starting area was called Talking Island, and it was so fun back when the game was first released, because it was just full of noobs, and they'll just be outside a town fighting, and it was just a town in the middle of an island. You go around the island, level up to about 20, and then you catch a boat, which took a good, I believe, 45 minutes for the boat to get to the main island, and then you move on from there and continue your progress. Now, the rights to host a separate European version of the game was handed to a company called 4Game, and they actually allow people to either access the new edition with the expansions, the new classes, the new races, and it's all free to play with the in-game shop. But they also allow people to play the classic version of the game on a subscription-based model. Now, the classic version of the game, it was very difficult to level up. To me, when I first started playing, level 45 was really high, level 52 when you get to the B grade armor was high, and level 61, which I believe was when A grade armor started, that was just like end game. Now people are getting to like level 90, level 100. I sort of lost track of exactly what's going on in the game. It used to be so hard to level up. So the classic game, if you used to play that years ago, is still available to you, but it is subscription based. Now, my biggest bugbear, apart from the farming and just the constant just grinding, spending hours just killing the same mobs over and over again, maybe sort of mixed up with the odd player killer here and there. That was a decent thing about Lineage 2. You could kill or try and kill anyone that you really wanted to. You weren't restricted by sort of what I would call the snowflake generation, where nobody wants to be hurt, nobody likes to be trolled, etc, etc. But the biggest issue for me when it comes to Lineage 2 was it was just plagued by gold farmers, gold sellers, people using third-party programs to bot If you don't know what bots are, they're sort of like automated programs that will just make your characters just go around in circles, just killing things over and over again. Some people didn't use third-party programs on their main accounts, but what they would do is maybe use one on a second account. They would have a healer or a buffer and use a third-party program to automatically follow them around, heal them, buff them, and just sort of make it easier for them to level up and then out-farm other people. Now, the problem with that is Lineage 2 had a very good economy system. Gold-driven everything. Items were very, very scarce. You very rarely got armor and weapons dropped in the field. So you had to rely on buying and selling, and also dwarves crafting weapons and armor. And they were very, very expensive. And they only got more expensive with the more gold that was in circulation. And because there were so many gold farmers, all just farming just low-level areas or mid-level areas, there was just too much gold getting into circulation. And NCSoft never, to me personally, never really seemed to try and sort of squash that. And I don't know, they just seemed quite lazy. So the issue with that is very, very difficult to get hold of your standard C grade weapons, B grade, A grade, etc., and move on up. Now, I'm not exactly sure what 4Game's approach is to people using third-party software and gold farmers, gold sellers, but I'm hoping, to be honest, I don't think they could do any worse than what NCSoft really did. Now, that's not me slating NCSoft off completely. They did create a really good game for what it was in 2003, but they just didn't really seem too keen on following up with the ban hammer, let's say, with malpractices. Okay, after all that negativity, let me just quickly show you how to install the games. I will leave a link for both the NCSoft version and the 4Game version, depending from where you're from. Obviously, NCSoft would be for North American. Now, this is where my main account used to be. Unfortunately, though, I cannot access this anymore. I had a level 80 Sagittarius, which is like an archer, and I really wanted to show you that character because she is powerful. Unfortunately, I can't get on it anymore. I have no idea why. I've tried everything. It just does not want to work. So obviously you just want to create an account, go through all of the process here to create yourself an NCSoft account, and download Lineage 2 from there. It is free to play, so that's the first option. I will leave you a link for the other version, which is this one. So what I mentioned to you before is that you can access both the new version and the old version. So let me just sign in here. Okay, so now I've logged in. Just quickly show you, you've got two options. You've got the classic version, like I mentioned before, with a subscription based, which is the old school Lineage 2 that I remember, and then you've got the new version with all the expansions and all the new races and classes. Like if we look at the two differences here, there used to be only human, elf, dark elf, orc and dwarf, all with their different classes that you have to choose from as you level up. And on the new one, they've got the old ones, obviously, but they've also got the Kamale and the I can't even pronounce that word. And the classes have changed slightly, so stop moving. You've got like Yule Archer, Tier Warrior or something. So, yeah, it's changed a lot. Okay, so this is the main screen that you will be met with, and there are currently two different servers, and this is just so I remind you, the 4Game version, the European version. Now, I've already got two characters here which I've created and sort of leveled up. I've got a ranger and I've got a knight. But let's create a new one. Just quickly go through the classes. This is probably one of the best things about Lineage, is the versatility. Now, you can't see that versatility so much at the moment. All you're seeing is just the different races, and then you either have warrior or wizard. Some of them don't have either the warrior or wizard option, and then either male or female, obviously. The versatility comes into when you level up. and you go through each of the classes and you choose between whether you want to go more of a tanky class, or whether you want to go more a damage class or more utility. So let's create an orc. A female orc. We'll call her Beefy. It's a nice name for an orc. So this is where we start off with. It's vastly different from when I remember it. Each race would generally start in their own area. So humans would start in Talking Island. Dark elves would be at Dark Elf Village, obviously. Light elves would be at the Light Elf Village. Orcs would be at the Orc Camp. But no, we're all starting in the same place, which used to be Talking Island, but now it's just like a generalised low-level area. It's typical movement. Well, actually, no, I'm telling a lie. The movement is very old school, so you have to click to move. Whereas generally now, MMOs, you use your WASD on the keyboard. I'm not sure if that is an option on this. I probably could do with actually checking that, because that would make it a lot easier. I like the WASD format. So just want to go quickly over the pros of this game. I know I've said a little bit of negative things, but there's a sense of achievement in this game when you level up. Because it takes so long to grind, or well, it used to, because it took so long, when you actually finally reach that target you was aiming for, there's a huge sense of achievement there. Now, obviously I started out as a human fighter on this orc, just getting stuck in the wall there. I think I want to go the more damage type. So when I get my first weapon, it will be a no-grade weapon. 0 to 20 is all no-grade. You'll understand it as I talk more about it. So once you after level 20, you go through your first class change. Now for this class fighter, I think there's two options. There's a monk, which uses sort of a double fist weapon. That sounds bad, I know. And then there is another class which I think is more two-handed, like a destroyer or something like that. It uses big two-handed sword. I want to go the double fist weapon. So the first thing I need to do is get to level 20, do my first class change and change to a monk. Also when I get to level 20, that's when I go from no grade armor and weapons, and I can then go on to D grade armor and weapons. So the stronger weapons, and there's a lot of different sort of lower end of the D grade weapons and armor to the high end, which is more expensive. But I believe with this 4-game edition, you do get given some items to sort of help you along. Once that is done, your next target is to get to level 40. At level 40, you go through your second class change. I'm not entirely sure what that class change is with the Orc Monk. I believe it's like a Tyrant or something like that. So it's a stronger two double-fisted... that word. Yeah, double-fisted weapon. And at level 40, you also go on to C-grade weapons and armor. After that, the next target is level 52. There's no class change there, but you go on to the B grade weapons and armor, and then the next one is 61, which is your A grade, and then you go on to S grade. I believe it's at 76, and at that point you have your third class change. So 76, third class change. So when I mentioned the Sagittarius earlier that I had, which was level 80, I started as a human fighter. Then at level 20 I went into a rogue, which at that point is sort of like a hybrid. You can either be a bow and arrow person or a knifey person. And then at level 40 class change, I became a Hawkeye. I had a choice between Treasure Hunter and Hawkeye. Treasure Hunter is a knifey person, Hawkeye is the bow and arrow. And then at level 76, I became a Sagittarius. That's pretty much, yeah. Now there's another one on top of that, which is later on after S grade. I believe there's R grade. Not sure how they've come to that, but I think it's like level 80 something, 85 maybe. So there's so much to progress through. So depending on how you play, you can choose what sort of weapon you want to use, etc. There is also subclasses. So when you get to I believe 75, you have the ability to go to an NPC and change to a subclass. So you can become any other class you want, and you can then transfer 1 or 2 skills from that class once you've leveled it up, and you can switch between your main class and your subclass.
As for you, I will deal with you myself.
So that was just a short look at the newbie boss at the beginning of the game. You go through a whole area and then you end up there and you kill that dude. And at this point now, when you hand in this quest, you should be almost level 20. So we're just going to hand it in. I should ping. And I get to choose between the monk and the other class. I'm definitely going monk. And there we go. So that's the first class change. Used to be vastly different. Let me just remind you, you had to do so many quests before you could actually do that class change, but now you pretty much do it straight away. Level 40 class change was annoying. You had to do 3 separate quests, which were really long. So I've always got new skills here, skills that sort of use with my fist weapons. And a buff, a nice little buff there, which I can use on myself, a self buff. And I should have also been given some items, which again is like a new addition to this version of the game, where you get given some items just to help you out. Do I have to go to an NPC to get those items, or do I already have them? Let's go over here. Oh, what's that? Yeah, we have some items. So, yeah, D grade items. So let's just change into that. We've got nice load of jewelry as well. I wasn't expecting that. Let's see how I look now with this getup on. Not bad. They're almost top end of D grade, this stuff that they're giving you. I wonder how far that goes, whether they give you C grade and B grade when you get to the certain levels. So, my monk Beefy is level 20, and it's time to move on to the main map. As mentioned before, you had to get a boat from Talking Island to get to the main map, but you could also teleport. But to be honest, when you was a noob back then, it was very difficult to collect the money needed to teleport. Now it's free, so yeah, just teleport wherever you want. Just wherever you want to go. It's easy. So, I don't want to make this episode too long. I just wanted to just build up some interest for this game again. See if people do tend to go back to it. So, PvP is a massive aspect of this game. It's pretty much majority of what you'll be doing at endgame. I've just been taught in these guys that they're a bit higher level than my knight. And to be fair, I'm not very good at playing the knights. I'm much better at the archer. You can engage anyone at any time except in towns. There's no safe zones out of town, and you can have big group fights if you want. But the main PvP comes from your clan fights. So getting a guild / clan together, fighting over sort of clan halls and also castles. Castles are the biggest PvP at the moment, well, from what I remember. So yeah, if you like PvP, this is also a pretty decent game to do that. So that's it for this video, guys. I really hope this sort of just knocks up some interest for Lineage 2. It's an old game. It's been running longer than World of Warcraft. They've changed so much, and it's still a good game. It is a grind though. You have to, but there are quests to sort of help you out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye bye.